she'll give brilliant answers, and then people can either tell us you want to ask a question or put the question in the chat. Wendy, uh, Wendy is going to be moderating. So a lot of you know Sasha. Maybe some of you don't. Sasha is an artist who works in Brooklyn, who also works here in Wellfleet, who's well known on the Outer Cape and in Brooklyn. She's a gallerist. She used to run a community gallery in Gowanus. She has a view of running a gallery, which is unusual. It's about collaboration and promoting new artists and old artists, which is not so usual in galleries, and making people feel at home and feeling as though art is a community and collaborative effort. So we're happy that she's part of our gallery and happy she's our Zoom person of the evening. So first is, tell us something about yourself as an artist.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Thank you for coming. And thank you, Robert and Wendy, and for all your work. And I don't know if Barbara Woodbury is here, but wow, she's wonderful at the website. So I want to thank her too. So I'll tell you a little bit about the work and myself. I'm starting on the wrong page. I've always been drawn to images that evoke disappearances and change, just broadly speaking. Whether those disappearances are from the passage of time or historical upheaval or in images in the natural world. So my work often includes images of artifacts, shards, broken things from the natural world, fall leaves, shells, horseshoe crabs, which I hope are not disappearing, seed pods, driftwood. A lot of these images or these objects I find in and around this old house on Cape Cod that my Russian Georgian grandparents moved to in the 30s. But also in Gowanus in Brooklyn along this 19th century canal where my studio is. I've always been interested in forgotten or erased history, and in particular, biographies of women. And I've just always read biographies of what I think of as forgotten mentors, and they give me strength. And Margaret Fuller sort of leapt towards me and grabbed a hold of me about 4 years ago, and hasn't let up for 1 minute, and has been kind of the energy behind this body of work that I just keep kind of putting out into the world. She took me to Rome, where she was the first woman correspondent writing for the New York Tribune. That was the last year of her life. She died in a shipwreck on the way home. She took me to the Houghton Library in Boston, where there's an incredible archive of her letters and her diaries, and I held them in my hands. It was quite an incredible experience. So she's sort of the engine behind the work, and I'm always searching for the right word, but engine will have to do for now, because she enables me to speak about other things too. So they're broad, the images are kind of, you wouldn't necessarily have to know they were about Margaret Fuller, but she's certainly there and she's very important. But it also enables me to express things about the world in general, or making connections between her life and contemporary life, between past and present. And inevitably to express themes in my own life. So for instance, these pieces, most of them focus on Margaret Fuller's tools. So that would be her pencil, her pen, and her scissors. I always imagine she also probably stitched her, her clothing and had scissors and needle and thread. And I'm always trying to visualize images of objects that she would have held. So, but, you know, the pencil, the pen, and the scissors are also my tools. So it's very much a way of, it's sort of I borrow her in a sense to express my own themes in my own life. And so as I'm sort of studying her and reading about her, images and words kind of bubble up to the surface. And they also, I discover sometimes after I put them in a painting, I realize, that has a lot to do with my life too. For instance, her words survived the wreck. You know, she died in a shipwreck. Thoreau was sent by Emerson. Emerson was her colleague, and as many other writers were. And Thoreau, she was Thoreau's editor. And when they heard that she had gone down in the ship, Emerson sent Thoreau to find her body, and he never found her body. They never did. But they found her steamer trunk, and he found her Rome diary in the steamer trunk, which is now at the Houghton Library. So her words survive the wreck.
Andrea.
Excuse me?
What do you want to say?
It's okay. I had to click on something on the screen. I have it now.
There's Ailette. Hi, Ailette.
Hi there.
Please mute yourself.
Uh-oh. How do I do that?
I do it. I got it.
So her words survive the wreck is, so Thoreau found her steamer trunk. He found her diary. Her words survived, and she has incredible words. She said amazing things. But also, this year, my mother, Nell Houston, who was a poet, died, and I'm very aware of how her poetry is hugely important, even after many years of an illness. And so in a sense, I've been reading her poetry a lot, and her words survived the wreck. So that just gives you an idea how there could be multiple meanings to many of the images and the phrases.
So this body of work is made up of mixed media painting and assemblage. Are these the ways that you have always made art? And how has your process changed over the years?
So I've worked in many different media, and but usually mixed media. And I think that's because I really enjoy the variety of the textures and surfaces of the different materials. But the general theme of all of my work is it's very hands-on and it's very labor intensive. So for instance, with these paintings, I took antique fabric, I painted it, I then did ink drawing and watercolor drawings on paper. I then cut all the little elements and words and images and letters out and applied them to a board of some kind. And so it very, very labor intensive. And I just will quickly say that the antique fabric is very important. It kind of, I just find it very beautiful. It's kind of a repository of memory, and people give them to me. They're not really used anymore, and they're usually stained and torn, and it's kind of scary painting on them. But I feel like, in a sense, I'm transforming them into something new. So it's a sort of an intense process.
So can you tell us how the story and themes of Margaret Fuller's lives are best served by using mixed media and assemblage techniques?
Well, I think that this material, particularly this antique fabric, is important with the Margaret Fuller work because antique lace and linens have these kind of pretty rigid gender and class associations. The upper classes usually use them. They were often made by, workers, laborers. And so this moment of almost destroying them is a kind of a disruption of that in a sense. But like I said, I feel like I am creating something new. So there's sort of a change, sort of alchemical change going on, as I'm doing it. And I think the restrictions in the fabric kind of mirror the restrictions in Margaret Fuller's life, because boy, did she have restrictions. A woman in the 19th century. Well, she wrote a book called Woman of the 19th Century. It was incredibly restricted, and she was not able to work. She was not able to make money. Anyway, so, it's a long story, but I would say that the media is important, the mixed media for that.
Also because many of the things she had with her in her suitcase, they floated up to shore in fragments. Is the fragmentation of the work part of that, to show that kind of?
Yeah. I mean, I think that definitely. Somebody described these paintings as having sort of ecosystems, and as if you're looking in a pool of water, at a shallow pool of water, and so these objects and images and are all kind of working together. And I think it's sort of creating a new ecosystem out of objects from her life. And as I said, they're objects that are also from my life, so it kind of goes hand in hand.
So can you say more about Margaret Fuller's life and death, and how? Yes. And how?
Yeah, but I'll try to keep it short.
How her life and death is still timely and represents the lives of women today.
So Margaret Fuller wrote the first American book on women's rights, which influenced the suffrage movement in this country. She visited prisons in New York and spoke out about prison reform. And she spoke out about the cancer of slavery. So she was an enormously important voice that was later pretty much erased. For her Emerson and her male colleagues wrote a posthumous memoir and kind of distorted her words, and the description of her were somewhat distorted. So I feel like she's a voice that just is very, very connected to the present, especially when women's rights and voting rights and basic human rights are under siege. So that's also a lot of the, well, for instance, that piece you just showed, it says, "Monstrous are the treacheries of our time." Well, I feel that way today. So, it's another example of sort of tying the past and the present. And, things were monstrous then, but they can be today too. So, so I think, I mean, even tying it in my mind, to Ruth Bader Ginsburg's death, and her words are so important. Her words survived. So that's very much part of the work too.
So that's the end of my questions, and Wendy Littrell is going to continue moderating. And if you have any questions, you can either speak up, so turn your microphones back on, unmute yourself and ask a question, or you can ask a question in the chat.
I have a question. Sasha, can you hear me?
Yes, who's that?
It's Chrissy Schlesinger.
Hi, Chrissy.
Hey, hi. In what way did Emerson and Thoreau distort her words? Or was it Emerson who, I can't remember, you said Thoreau, I think.
No, it wasn't Thoreau. It was Emerson and several other of her male colleagues. So what they did was basically Oh, they did a lot. They edited her words. The descriptions of her were kind of, she had a monumental ego, and they were kind of grotesque, the descriptions of her. And later, a childhood friend of hers read through that memoir and made notations saying this is, he used the term sublime bosh. So
why do you think they did that? What was their motivation?
Questions. I mean, you know, there was talk that she and Emerson had a very passionate relationship, and they sort of fell out when she married. She went to Rome and she married a Roman Republican soldier and had a baby, which was unheard of. She was a spinster, and who knows? You know, I think it was at the time, you know, that she was a hurricane force, is how they described her. And
so do you think they were just threatened by the fact that she was such a powerful woman, so they had to cut her down to size, kind of like that? Is that too simplistic?
I can't really say for sure. You know,
Okay.
all I know is that she was actually quite well known up until the Civil War. So it wasn't just that memoir, but the memoir certainly didn't help. And I don't know why she slipped into a silence, or, you know, I don't know why that happened, but
well, that's the project, right? To unsilence women. I mean, that's
very much. Yeah. These are important mentors for that need to speak, and she's speaking through my work. Is basically
well, it's great. Good work. Great work.
Thank you, Chrissy.
Thank you.
We have two statements in the chat, Sasha, that you might want to respond to. One is from Mark about whether Buckminster Fuller.
Which Mark?
I'm sorry, all it says is Mark.
Oh.
The architect engineer is in any way related to your work?
Buckminster Fuller was a descendant of Margaret Fuller's, yes. And, you know, she had a big family, New England family. And they were also, you know, like some were more supportive of her than others, but she definitely was related to Buckminster Fuller. He was like another couple generations after her.
And Elise seems to have a question about, or observation. Elise, do you want to say something more about that that's in the chat?
Sure. I mean, I was just so struck by the way in which the layers of the language that you're using both speak to, they speak to memory so clearly for me. And I just am sort of, and then formally how the shards or the fragments, as well as the linen that was the already used or repurposed linen, that it also speaks to memory and reflection. They feel, as I put in the chat, both personally diaristic in some ways, but also kind of really seem to speak to a collective. And it's a beautiful duality, Sasha, that I just really enjoy the practice, just the discovery. The longer you spend with the work, and I got to see the work in the gallery, I've seen your work at other times as well. It's just such they're so always engaging and encouraging more deeper exploration. They're really fun and beautiful and profound to spend time with.
Thank you, Elise.
Sure.
That's wonderful. I think the layered process it's nice what you say, because it's a layered perception of them too. It you know, that it takes time to make them and time to sort of perceive them.
Yes, and it's just the process evolves. Your process is an evolutionary one when you're in the making, and then there's the process of of receiving them, which also is layered and is about time. They're great.
Thank you.
Sure.
Sasha, Hani has a question, Hani Woodbury, about how you begin a piece. Do you pre-visualize it or develop it as you progress?
Actually, it's me, Wendy. We're the three Woodburys are all together at Hani's.
Okay.
Woodburys. The first thing,
it's Barbara.
Barbara. The first thing I do is I take this incredibly beautiful fabric and I lay it all over the floor and all over every surface. And I have a visualization of a kind of a color. Like this pink color was, and these sort of browns and mauves was one big painting job that went on for a couple of days. And so that's sort of that's part of the visual. I have a visualization, either ochres or pinks or sea blues, seaweeds, that kind of thing. And then I start cutting these fabrics up, and I'm simultaneously doing these drawings, and it kind of creates itself at that point. You know, I kind of let go of control, and it sort of takes over. But I think I do have a kind of a color visualization up front. These colors, by the way, these pinks was during the early spring, and when some of the cherry blossoms, before they bloom, they're kind of mauve, and I think I was doing it during that part of the year.
Great.
Sasha, Mark Brennan is interested in having you speak about the pieces you did on the driftwood.
The driftwood. Well, the driftwood, the drifters, as I call them, literally came out of walks along the marsh, because I've been on the Cape since March, and every day I walk for miles, and at some point started picking up these pieces of driftwood, and then just it wasn't really thinking much, started applying some of the fabric and some of the cut paper, these, you know, the seaweed and to the driftwood. But at some point it did occur to me, driftwood, shipwrecks, this kind of works. So it's been really fun working on the driftwood pieces, because they're really, I think I'm drawn to a little bit of a three-dimensional thing, and they really allow me to work almost three-dimensionally. I'm not quite. In this piece, the one on the right is three-dimensional. So that's that they really grew out of being in this place. But I think that Margaret had her shipwreck was in there too.
And Sasha, they can be arranged in different organizations. Like right now, these are lined up in a certain organization, but that isn't necessarily the way it would always have to be.
No, they're separate pieces, but they sort of worked. I sort of created them in sets. So they kind of work in sets of 4 and 5. And actually the one on the announcement image went to a show in New Haven at a wonderful pre-Civil War library, and the curator put them on a wall, and they could be on a wall, but I was visualizing them in a kind of a vitrine more, and they can be arranged in different ways. They're pretty loose, but they are in sets of 4 or 5.
Others?
Know how to chat.
So I have a question. Oh, I have a question.
Rosemary, let's let Rosemary Brooks go.
Oh. Okay. I was wondering how it felt to Sasha. Hi, Sasha. How it felt to apply all your different pieces to wood versus fabric. I mean, in terms of tactility, that must be a different sensation. And whether, or maybe not, I don't know, but whether or not that had an influence. They seem, the ones on wood seem to have power to them, like an emphatic presence, where the other pieces are more muted and delicate. I mean, I like them both, but they seem different to me in some respects.
When you say on wood, I think you mean the driftwood pieces?
Yes. Yes.
So all of them are on wood of some kind or other. The paintings are on panels.
Okay.
So there is a solid backing to them. And I've played around with different kinds of wood panels and different, but in most of those you don't see the wood.
Right.
But I really do like working with wood and wood panels, and the driftwood was really fun because it enabled me to really work with the wood and the markings on the wood. And, you know, they had nail holes in them, and they're just such beautiful objects in themselves. And in all of the work, you know, it's trying to not destroy what's actually beautiful already is a real test for me. Like the driftwood is so beautiful without anything. So
Right.
Once I'm going to cover up, and I usually don't cover up everything, I leave a nail hole or a rusted crack or something.
Mm-hmm.
And similarly with the work, the more two-dimensional works on flat panels, the fabric paintings, I guess you'd call them. The trick is don't destroy the fabric entirely. And that because the fabric in itself is so beautiful. So the embroidery, the you know, fringes and the lace and all that stuff, you know, a lot of it gets destroyed or covered, but I try to kind of hold on to it too, and so that you can still see the beauty of the fabric itself.
Aspects of the brick as well as the wood still speak. I mean, they pop through, they come through, yeah, as one of the layers,
right,
in your time capsule in a way.
That's a nice way of describing it.
Sasha, we have an interest in the sizes from Candace, but I think since we have such a short time left, I'm thinking that all of that information might be on the website.
I think they are. If you hover
see
over
what
the
I'm doing? If you put the cursor on top of the work, it has all the information, including the dimensions. Candice, you see that?
Hi, Candy.
Thank you. I got it. Okay.
All right.
Do you want to close out with your question, Robert?
Yeah, well, I know Sasha's been very involved in the Sally project about having people contribute work about women whose lives maybe have not been well known or erased. And there was supposed to be a large show this August in the library here in Wellfleet, and concurrent show at Off Main Gallery, and some of the work also at Farm at Susie Nielsen's gallery. So I'm just wondering, we don't know if it will happen next August, we're hoping. But from that research you've done about other women, are there other women you're going to then start thinking about making bodies of work about?
Well, this is a collaborative project I'm doing with Joanne McFarland, another artist curator, and we are scheduled to do it, Sally, next August in the Wellfleet Library. And yes, we're going to be looking at, we traveled this project around the country, and we're going to be looking at women from this community. And I'm already having these wonderful conversations with the Wellfleet Historical Society, who have given me biographies of several women who we're going to focus on, and then invite artists to make work in response to them and have an exhibition. And I'm really excited that it's going to be at the several different venues in Wellfleet all at once. So that'll be a fun project. In terms of my own work, Margaret has a long way to go. I tend to work on projects for years at a time, and I'm guessing I'll be working on Margaret for at least a while longer. And there's other women who grabbed me too. You know, Mary Wollstonecraft, Jane Addams, and I've incorporated their lives into my work in other series, but it seems to be sort of a passion in general to work along these lines.
So as we close, there's a question from Megan Marshall about how did you get interested in Fuller?
Megan Marshall? From Megan Marshall?
Yes, from Megan Marshall.
I'm so moved. If it's the Megan Marshall I'm thinking of, she wrote the most fantastic biography of Margaret Fuller. Everybody should read it. It won a Pulitzer Prize. It's the book that pulled me into Margaret Fuller's life. So Megan, if you're here, I don't see you, but thank you.
She's here.
Thank you. I'm very moved and very honored and touched.
But do you want to answer about how you got interested?
Me?
Yes.
How I got interested? My mother, just before she died, said, "You've got to read Megan Marshall's book about Margaret Fuller," and I did, and that was it. And she said to me, "She's unbelievable." And so basically, I've read Megan's book, and then there's a number of other biographies of her. And as I said, I've been sort of doing my own sort of artist version of researching, which is not an academic's version, but it's fun, and it just, like I said, it fires me up for making these paintings. But yeah, originally it was Megan Marshall's book. Highly recommend it.
So we have to close, but most of the work is at the gallery on Main Street in the back, behind the ice cream store, which is closed. So you can come for art, but not ice cream. And if there's any work that you see here that's not in the gallery, Sasha is here in Wellfleet, so she can bring more work to the gallery. And we thank you all for coming. And we thank Sasha for this fantastic body of work. 2 weeks from tonight, we have Mark Bernstein having his Zoom opening and talking about his photographs. So, moderator, close us out.
Goodbye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye, Sasha.
Bye, Sasha. Beautiful.
Bye, Sasha.
Thank you.
Beautiful.
Lovely.
Bye, Sasha. Beautiful work.
Love it. Beautiful.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.